Hi, Talia.
Hi, Mehru.
How are you?
I'm doing better now. Now that I can hear you, we're back and we're recording. I feel a lot better now.
I know. So, hello, everybody. Thanks for watching our video. We have been away from YouTube for a bit, I would say, and our podcasts because we recently just did a live on Instagram, and that is what we're continuing this episode with. So that live was for the F word, which is feminism, and this episode is also going to be on that. So happy International Women's Day to everybody, first of all. Happy International Women's Day to you, Talia, especially.
Happy International Women's Day to you, Mehru, and happy Women's Day to all the women out there, as well as all the gender non-conforming women out there and people out there. So for everybody, here we are, and today this means a lot for us to be able to share our platform and to celebrate being women, and to understand also how we can stand in our own power and demand for the rights and justice that is owed to us.
Yes. So again, I mean, I say this on the start of every podcast we start, but this is a very, very special episode because this is coming straight from the heart and what our podcast, our channel is all about. The platform Talia and I share is for the interest of women's rights, to advocate for them, to understand the patriarchal structures in our society, understand that, and how it affects all women out here. And this episode is also celebrating Aurat March in Lahore, which will be happening, hopefully has happened already because this will go up on Monday night for our Pakistani people. But so yeah, happy Aurat March to everybody, and whoever is participating. Hopefully you had a good march, and hopefully we will get our message across. But yeah, so happy Aurat March to everybody. And another thing, okay, it's not only two of us on this podcast today. We also have three more women behind Talia. So for those who are listening to this, I'm sorry you won't be able to see them, but those who are watching this, we have three more special women present with us in this podcast. And please, Talia, introduce them, please.
So I do paint in my spare time, and then sometimes when I'm really stressed out, I just take some oil and I take oil paints, and I take cardboard from Amazon deliveries, and I just go what we can say free and just express myself. So I have three beautiful women behind me that I have painted who I enjoy, and we have Sheila, we have Bilkis, and then we have Shayla.
Oh, Shayla, Bilkis, and Sheila. Hello, everybody.
They are there. I wake up to them. This is also my room, so they make me happy. And slowly, I'm going to be filling up this entire wall with more of my creations. And I enjoy them. They make me happy. They make me smile. And they all just really don't care what anybody thinks about them or anybody.
As they should, 100%. So yeah, had to acknowledge them in the room because they're special women, for Talia especially. So yeah, and before we get into this episode, guys, do go follow us on Arz Kiya Hai podcast on Instagram. Our live is available to watch over there, and we get into a very deep and passionate conversation about feminism, of course, but however, live pe you only have an hour to talk. So if you watch that video, you'll see how Talia and I have so many things to say, but we didn't have enough time. But we knew we were going to continue it in this special podcast for the Aurat March.
Yeah, I think this is very important for us, right? Because especially where you have ever been around people who have said, the feminist types, or what is feminism, or these crazy feminists, all that. I think there's a lot of unpacking that needs to be done. People need to understand what feminism even actually means. What does feminism what does it look like in reality? And to understand and stop getting scared of it, and understand it's actually it's a movement to ask for basic human rights, demand basic human rights for women, and understanding it's patriarchy that has disadvantaged women for all centuries. So that is what we're trying to focus on, and we're gonna we're not just gonna throw these terms out. We're gonna work together to understand what it even means, so that we can take pride. Because I remember, and I think Mehru and I, where we want to come at is that we've been in places growing up and we're like, no, we're not feminist.
Bilkul.
Oh, we believe in equality for women. We used to fight and advocate for women to have their rights. to be honored, to be able to have their own to have opportunities and have equal decision making. But we were so scared to even call ourselves feminists because society had us believe that feminism was like this evil, or that it was these women were going to lose out on all these characters. And we've been like throwing all of that out of the window and said, why do women have to fit into a box? We don't. And what does it mean to be a feminist and ask for my own rights? What does that mean? And I think we'll go through that one by one today.
For sure. And we also talked about our own journeys a little bit too. Jaise Talia ne bola, we were scared to be labeled or called feminists, right? Because the misconception around feminism or feminists is that these are men-hating women who just want to get rid of all the men in the world, so that all their problems will go away, and they're just men-hating women. No, we're not. We're not men-hating women. You can be a feminist and you can still appreciate and love men in your life. You can respect men around you as long as they respect you equally, right? So that's what the call for feminism is, that call for equal rights between men and women. And of course, there's intersectional feminism, which we'll get into too. So that's not only men and women, it's for transgender people, folks out there, non-binary folks out there, right? Non-conforming folks out there. So it's a call for equal rights for them as well.
But intersectionality is also more than that. Intersectionality, we can talk about that in a bit, because it looks at class, abilities, it looks at ethnicities, it looks at all the other identities that we hold attached to our gender identity, which is a woman, that has compounded impacts on the way we experience life. So that means that if someone is a Christian woman in Pakistan, her challenges are going to be much more different than a Sunni woman in Pakistan. Or a woman here in Canada, for example, an Indigenous woman is going to have many more challenges than a white woman is going to have, or even a brown South Asian immigrant woman is going to have either. So we have to, and then if that woman also happens to have a physical disability, her experiences are going to be further different, and the challenges and barriers she's going to face are going to be different. So with intersectionality, we're saying that all women's experiences are not the same. But with feminism, where feminism comes from is feminism says that men and women are equal human beings. So now this is where we all, our Desis all get like, oh, hi, what does that mean? Men and women are not equal. They're not the same. They have different body parts and different abilities. And this was something we wanted to talk about as well, is that doesn't matter. It does not matter whether someone has X amount of muscles and someone has X amount of like testosterone in them and somebody has estrogen in them. It does not matter. What we're saying is you're still human beings. So as human beings, you have equal rights. So that doesn't matter whether you have certain levels of abilities, disabilities, you're man, woman, doesn't matter. You have equal rights, and these rights are guaranteed to you. So there are international conventions on human rights, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is number one. All those rights that men have, women have them as well. So, but when we look at the data, for example, it shows us a very different story. Women face multiple barriers in accessing education, in accessing healthcare, in exercising their judicial rights, into participation in politics. Women face so many barriers that limits their ability to live their life to the fullest. A life that a man can live is not the same life that a woman can live, right? So we're saying, and when you say, why is that happening? It's because patriarchy has established roles for women that confines them to a box. And we're saying we're going to smash that box and say, no, women don't have to survive in that. So then the flip side of this is, does that mean, Kate, then you're breaking down a family structure? No. There's feminist men and women who have beautiful families, and they can live in harmony with each other forever. But it means that the men and women have equal rights. The daughter and the son in that household will have equal opportunities. It will not be expected the guy can do whatever he wants and the girl will have to come and pick up after him. Or it means that they will, if the girl wants to go out and study, go to NASA, she will have all opportunities put in place for her to go to NASA. Right? If the boy wants to paint, he can become a painter if he wants to. We have to get rid of these ideas of how patriarchy works in order to allow everybody equal opportunities to live. And I think, so for us today, so there's lots of realms in here, right? When we can look at these discrimination, whether that's in education, that's in employment, that's in political participation, it's in society, like social inclusion in society, that's the difference realm as well. But what we're going to focus on today is health, women's health. And the reason why we're focusing on that's also one of the topic areas that is themes of Aurat March in Pakistan. And since we are not in Pakistan, we recognize that, right? We recognize that we don't live that reality in Pakistan, and there's different accesses to healthcare, to different sort of resources for us here that may not be available in Pakistan. However, being of Pakistani descent, we hold strong ties with women who are in Pakistan. So we want to stand in solidarity with them and use our platform to amplify their voice. But also at the same time, women in Canada does not also face many healthcare inequities and face challenges in accessing the health that they need. So we're going to look at it from both realms and the repercussions, because our household that we grow up in are Pakistani households still that hold the same attitudes and the values and the same biases, which impact our own health over here too.
Yeah.
So we're going to flip all that on our head, and that's the discussion that we're going to have today. And it's going to be, and this topic is so vast, but we'll try to cover it in as much as we can, little bits here and there. And I think I've just done a lot of talking right now, so I'm going to hand it off to Mehru right now to sort of lead us next.
This could be a whole season of episodes just on the F word, feminism. And yes, as Aurat March's theme this year is health, उस पे हम सबसे ज़्यादा बात करने की कोशिश करेंगे, right? और हमारा experience health के साथ, or maybe even make some suggestions for what men in our lives or men who are watching this can do to smash the patriarchy, right? It's not like आप hammer पकड़ के आप अपने आप को मारना शुरू कर दो, because men are part of patriarchy, but women are also part of patriarchy. You know, we're complicit to that. But it's a system. And again, this is not just a concept, it's lived reality of women. A lot of the opportunities we do not get are because of patriarchy, just because of our systems like that, and in Canada and Pakistan too, for sure. I would just like to say that last year I had the opportunity to go to Pakistan in March, and my flights were literally around the anniversary, the starting of COVID, and I still did go, but I was this close to like changing my flight dates before Aurat March, which was going to happen. And I was just like, oh my God, this is my chance. I'm going to go in March anyway. Or मैं अगर एक हफ्ता पहले करा लूँ, तो I will be able to attend. Or मेरा dream है, you know, to march. Or honestly, just I'm more excited because जब मैं videos देखती हूँ और अपनी दोस्तों की pictures देखती हूँ और posters देखती हूँ, इतने funny, इतने clever posters वो सारे बना के जाते हैं, and I just wanted to be a part of that, and I was like, I want to march beside those women, but unfortunately I did not. But it's still a dream to go and march with the Aurat March one day. But as always, जैसे you know आप Happy Mother's Day करते हो अपने अम्मी को या अपने अब्बू को Happy Father's Day, और वो आपको हमेशा कहते हैं एक दिन नहीं होता, पूरा साल प्यार करना होता है अपनी अम्मी से, पूरा साल अपने अब्बू से प्यार करना होता है. That's the same with Aurat March. That's the same with the International Women's Day. It is one day to celebrate that, but however, it's a whole year long thing that we're fighting for and advocating for. पूरा साल आपको मेहनत करनी पड़ती है to reach results. But yeah, it's a dream for sure. And I know, Talia, that you would be right beside me when we are going to Aurat March. You and I would be like walking in the front, like, yes, chanting, or
hell yes.
Right. But yeah, so that's a dream for sure. So maybe we can talk about a little bit of our feminist journey. Yeah,
sure.
I think we should introduce that. And Talia, I would love to hear from you. Okay. What is your, when did you know that you were a feminist?
I think it was interesting, like my entire life, like ever since I grew, I can remember, I've always thought of women seeking a leadership role as a woman in my society, and I, from a very young age, I saw that women were not treated the same. Like I could see that there was partiality towards my brother as opposed to me, right? I saw that in like society, and I saw he had certain opportunities that I didn't. He could go learn swimming, I couldn't. He could, like, he could dress a certain way, I couldn't. And what sort of impacts did that have? But it's not just dressing, right? It was also things like opportunities in life that always mattered to me. And then also I saw women around me, like, who were who had to face gender-based violence all the time. And gender-based violence is not कि सिर्फ थप्पड़ पड़ गया, और भी बहुत सारे like mental violence होती है, emotional violence होती है, जो वो subjected होती हैं. So it was never okay with me. Or the ridicule that women would go through. Understanding के domestic workers. I grew up in Pakistan in the early part of my life. So the vulnerabilities that domestic workers faced in Pakistan, Christian women faced in Pakistan, and I came from a household that was not very woke, I would say, in today's millennial terms. I did not come from a woke household. I came from a very conservative household, and also a very patriarchal and a misogynistic household, right? Or misogyny is the term जहाँ पे औरत को बदतर दिखाया जाता है, where there's a disdain for women and womanhood. Women, okay, the concept के औरत ही औरत की दुश्मन है, या औरत से के सारी फसाद की जड़ औरत है. The concept of, like, that women are going to contribute to straying men from the righteous path. It is women who have to
misogynistic terms and phrases.
So all these terms, like, that never would resonate with me, and I would always find them to be wrong. And I think my mom was a bit of is a feminist as well. I don't think she recognized it. I don't think she had the terminology for that. But my mom was definitely. She said, I remember my mom saying कि जो चीजें मेरे साथ हुई हैं मैं कभी अपनी बेटी के साथ दोबारा नहीं होने दूंगी.
And right? That's feminism.
That's feminism, right? So she fought for my right. My mom brought us to Canada for me. That's what she said. She said that. She said, I came to Canada because I wanted my daughter to have the opportunities that I didn't have. I didn't come for my son. I didn't come for myself. I came for my daughter because I could see history repeating itself. So I think that's where I knew I had this responsibility to live a life that would be different from the other women in my family, right? And in my surrounding. And my mom is the only one who has an MBA. So my mother has a disability, a physical disability, but despite of that, she's the only woman in her immediate family circle who was a professional woman who went to law school and then went to business school. And then she, was a professional, and then she gave all that up and came to Canada and raised 2 children on her own as a single mother, right? So there was lots of things and a lot of biases that were attached to her because of her being a woman, right? People would question her, okay, why is she making a decision to live her life on her own when she can just, her husband is, she can just, stay in that relationship and whatever. Like, people were not comfortable with her making decisions for herself. Because if she picks her partner and then if it doesn't end up being right, why is she leaving an unhappy marriage? Like, no one wanted to believe her, but she just challenged all that. So I think my journey to feminism started from there. But I still didn't have the term feminist in my vocabulary or an understanding of it. And this is like, I'm still in high school at this point, still learning. And I remember, and I went to high school in Canada, and even within, I would say, white teachers, I remember, I think it was a social studies class, where I can't remember what it was, but sorry for any background noise, guys. I live on a very busy street, so and it's a Sunday morning, so I'm a little scared if there's going to be a lot of noise in the background, but bear with me, guys. Big topic. So in high school, I think it was a teacher or somebody, but I remember, like, we were talking about the feminist movement, the human rights movement, and there was concept of, like, pictures of women being shown as, these bra burning women, and that's who they are. Like, there was a lot of, like, so I think teachers also didn't have the full information. So when they were presenting the images and they were talking to us about what feminism looked like, in my mind, it was like, these women they're coming out with pitchforks. So the idea of how women need to be, like, the docile, the Disney princesses, it was a very different idea of what women are. And these are the women jo ghar nahi bana sakti. And then me being that South Asian girl who was trying to gain acceptance in society, well, my idea of acceptance is I have to be the Nek Parveen. I have to be the nice, docile woman.
You don't pull your sleeves up. You put them down.
I put them down. Yeah. मैं आवाज उठाती हूँ ना घर में, बस just a little bit. Like, I'll be like complaining to my cousins. Well, why can't they pick up their? Why do I have to go make chai for everybody? Right? Like, prime example, like in our household, like on the weekends or so, for example, I have exams tomorrow or something, but my cousins and everybody's coming over in the night, even if it's a weekday or anything like that. And I have exams in the morning. My cousins would have the same exams or so, and they're guys, but they had the right to go in their room and close their door and study, but I didn't. So I had to go into the kitchen because they're coming to our house. So I have to go and make the chai. And it's not, so I make the chai around once, and then everybody wants another cup. So then you make the chai around again and again and again. And all night long, I'm standing in front of the stove making chai for family. And this is in Canada I'm talking about, right? But nobody once looks up and thinks, why is she in the kitchen? Right? Or why is she doing that? Similarly, like another event happened over here. It was funny. Actually, the Council General actually once talked about it, but it was interesting. Like, it was an event, it was a mushaira or something, an event on, I think it was an Independence Day sort of an event. And there was catering being done. And I understand like logistics have to be managed, and I'm good at event planning as well. But like I took that charge and I was in the kitchen sorting out all the caterings and all that other things. Whereas in other events, I have presented and I have been on stage. And the Council General actually came, he said, like, aapne unko kitchen mein khada kar diya, unko to kaam stage pe hona chahiye. Right? Like, why did you? And it was interesting. So that reminded me, like, he had a very valid point. And it's so true. Like, why do we jump to the kitchen, right? And then at like, we're in, I think in my master's program as well, and in work, who orders the office cake? Who plans all the birthdays? The women do. And whenever there was an office party, who's doing the cleanup? It's here in Canada, like over here all the time, it's the women, right? And then like, I think when I was around 2021, around that time, I was gonna get my shadi situation started, right? Like that's the age when my mom was like really like, okay, let's start looking, and you're finishing my bachelor's and stuff. So young, and I was so stupid at that time. Thank God I never ended up getting married at that time. But like, I remember like I was talking to some, I think it was in the context of marriage, and I said, oh no, I'm not I believe men and women should have an equal respect in a relationship, but I'm not a feminist. Like, I'm not a feminist. Like, I had made that statement. And like, as soon as I said it, like something inside of me was like, but what is feminism, Talia? Like, do you understand what it is? Like, there was a voice in the back of my head. And mind you, like, I was studying political science. I should have known it better, right? But even interestingly, like, we go over realism, we go over international relations theory, we do like neoliberalism, we cover all the isms. But feminism, and I'm trying to go, like, feminism was, because I had a lot of white male professors, feminism was not an area that we talked a lot about. And that's sad. And I wonder if it's changed now. And I went to one of the best universities in the world. But like, I remember that's a topic in gender studies that you cover.
That's interesting, because I went to the same university that Talia went to, and usme we had a Canadian foreign policy class with Dr. Alan Sands. He's also the director, I think, of political science department.
Too, at that time, he was chair.
Oh, he was? Okay. He, like, yes, as you said, ke sare feminism ko cover karte hain topics, but since they're white male professors, they don't really push the message forward. And yes, I only saw that in my women and gender studies, or even law and society a little bit. But he was one of the professors who spoke as feminism, as looking at using a feminist perspective lens for your foreign policy in Canada. And he, like, I remember there used to be a bunch of guys who sat on top left corner of the class, and they would just sit in the back and leave whenever they wanted to, never really paid attention or whatever. And while he was talking about this and using feminism, he's like, why not women? Like, why not them in our industry or higher up positions and stuff? And he literally just like looked up to them. He's like, can you answer that? Like, why not women? Like, why are they not at the front line with us, right? Like, why is it them? And I was just like, I really just wanted to clap. I just really wanted, because again, not just because he's a man and he's motivating women, or like
he's in a position of power, and he's amplifying something that has not been looked at.
But that was really exciting for me, and so I think it's changed a little bit, maybe.
But again, and I think it changed because absolutely, because I think feminist foreign policy has been an area that has been growing quite a bit, like with Mexico, and then Canada's been talking about it. Right now we're in COVID, and there's talks about feminist recovery. Like Pakistanis, like, we're still scared to even say the word feminist, and right now government push kar rahi hai. Like there's been a push to adopt a feminist recovery lens for COVID. Tomorrow is going to be here in Canada. There's the government of Canada is hosting the Women's Summit, and it's on feminist recovery to Canada, right? So what does that mean? That means that what does that mean, right? Like, so for me as a professional, as I'm going and doing my own research and understanding, okay, this is what feminism means. This is what I've believed my entire life. And it's understanding the systems that we have set in place privilege men, prioritize men's needs and interests at the expense of women, which have real consequences for women. Whether that is you're designing, and there's a really amazing book by the Invisible Women by Carolyn Perez. I forgot her name, sorry. But it's about data, the way we've generated data, it's all on men. So when we create drugs, healthcare medicine, the research is based on men's needs. So for example, cars, when they're testing for impact, the dummies that they use for the testing are men's bodies. So like, does that not scare you? So or like the PPE equipment that was made or is manufactured, it's actually designed for a man's body. So if you think about that, how many consequences does that have for women overall? So that was my journey to becoming a feminist. Was okay. Then I said, hell that. And I think once you start working, you become right azad aurat, which that's why our families don't want us to get, our society doesn't want us to work. And they say कि लड़की की शादी करा दो 18-20 साल की उम्र तक. That is when she should get married. उसके बाद लड़की शादी नहीं करती.
उसके बाद वो हाथ से निकल जाती है.
हाथ से निकल जाती है. Yeah. तो मैं तो हाथ से निकल गई हुई हूँ, right? Like nobody has control over me anymore, because that's true. I'm looking for a feminist partner, someone who understands what feminism means and understands that feminism does not mean that I hate men or I want men to not have any rights. It's to say that no, I have the same rights as you, and we both have to build a life together in equality, right? So when you look at that in the context of health, it has some real consequences, and that's what I want to focus on a little bit today. But before we do that, I think, Mehru, do you want to share a little bit of your own journey of how you became a feminist? Or accepted that you're a feminist.
Accepted that I'm a feminist. Again, I think हम दोनों के लिए हम पहले से feminist थे. हमें बस पता नहीं था कि हम feminist हैं, and that's a label we can use for ourselves. I think बचपन में I saw a lot of double standards around my close family, in the sense कि जैसे मुझे इजाज़त नहीं मिलती थी और मेरे भाई को वही चीज़ों की इजाज़त मिलती थी. Excuse ये था कि age gap है, जब तुम बड़ी होगी, right? तो तुम वो कर सकोगी. But जो उस एज पे भी लड़कियां थी, उनको भी इजाजत नहीं मिलती थी. सो आई न्यू दैट देयर वाज दिस गैप देयर. फिर ऊपर से आपको बताया जाता है कि ये नहीं पहनना, वो नहीं करना, वगैरह वगैरह, या ऐसे लड़कियां अच्छी नहीं लगती इन चीज़ों में. बट देन व्हेन these are the same people who watch Bollywood, Hollywood movies, and they idolize the women on there, right? Or they say, oh my God, look how great she's looking. So those were like some of the double standards that I seen, and I was like, अच्छा, उधर वो अच्छा लग रहा है जस्ट बिकॉज वो मूवी में है, और हमारी रियल लाइफ में आप वैसी औरतों को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते, राइट? आप कहते हो कि ओ इट्स टैबू, छोटे कपड़े पहन लिए, इतनी स्किन क्यों दिखा रही है, ऐसे कौन बात करता है? मूवी में ठीक है, रियल लाइफ में नहीं आपने देखना. सो दोज वर अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स दैट आई सॉ, एंड देन आई स्टार्टेड, आई वाज लाइक, अच्छा, डबल स्टैंडर्ड्स. और मैं तो बहुत आई वाज वेरी कॉन्फ्रंटेशनल, और वैसे भी आई वाज आउटस्पोकन, तो दिस वाज लाइक अ पर्सनालिटी दैट आई टुक ऑन, एंड आई वुड बी लाइक, अच्छा तो मेरे साथ पंगा, like मुझे ये बताया जाता है और बाहर जाके ये होता है. So I sort of took on that. And then I had some really positive role models around me, like women role models around me that I looked up to. So I went to an all-girls school, and there were some very debatable now. I could question them, but they were very strong women role models for me back then. So I looked up to them. And then my mom herself, very independent, very aware, helped out other women. So I learned from her experiences too, right? So I just knew that this is wrong, like the inequality, the patriarchy in my society, this is wrong completely. It has some very negative effects on women, and I want to change that. So anyway, then I came to Canada, and mera perspective वही था, lens मेरा feminism ही था, but I just didn't know that I was a feminist. और फिर मैंने थोड़ा और पढ़ा, and I heard from my friends and वगैरह वगैरह. तो एक दिन I was actually at work, and I work at a women's nonprofit here as well, and this was at this. And I would say this is recent that I can strongly call myself a feminist. Is that I was just talking about something, and or feminism ka topic aa gaya, and I said something like, "Oh, I wasn't a feminist," and but then the other lady, she cut me off, and she's like, "No, if you believe in equal rights, you're a feminist. Why are you so afraid?" She just confronted me like that. She was like, "What's wrong? Like, why can't you say you're a feminist? Like, what's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I never thought." But she was just like, "But you believe in equal rights." I was like, "Yeah, but I never." She was just like confronted me like that. So, I guess rude of her in that sense to confront me like that, because my journey with feminism is different, right? Like the label, it's not really liked, or I didn't know it properly. But
and there's a lot of baggage that South Asian women
exactly. So अगर आप अपने घर में या अपने cousins को फिरते हुए फेमिनिज्म करोगे ना, आपको like एक तो वो एक दो गंदी गालियां देके, ओ ऐसी चीज कोई नहीं होती, ये feminist type, ये निकले हुए अपना एजेंडा लेके, एक तो वो आपको कहेंगे,
or they will say ये औरतें सिर्फ नंगी घूमना चाहती हैं.
Yeah, like मेरा जिस्म मेरी मर्जी is all about walking around
these
naked.
Women, yeah, that's all that these women want to do. Yeah. And then that will scare you further. Yeah. Oh, I don't want to be that woman.
Yeah. So she confronted me like that, which was a little bit like, oh, acha, but like you don't understand that there's so much baggage attached to it. However, that was also very important for her to do, because that experience made me think that, okay, why am I so afraid? Like, I'm ready to take it on. So then I just was very, like, in that moment, it took some time, of course, but I was just like, okay, let's see what happens when I start calling myself a feminist, right? Like, let's see what challenges I'll face. We'll take it step by step. And then I did. And to be honest, it was the same challenges I faced when I did not call myself a feminist and I still advocated for equal rights. It was the same thing. But yeah, the only added layer was that people like feminist type, ये कुछ चीज नहीं होती, औरतों को वही हक मिले हुए हैं, पता नहीं इतने रोती क्यों हैं, ठीक है. तो challenges मेरे वैसे ही थे, और फिर आर्ग्यूमेंट्स भी उतनी ही हो रही थी. कोई कुछ चेंज नहीं हुआ. So then now I know for a fact that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was a feminist. I just didn't know it, and I still am and will continue to be. So yeah, that's my short summary of feminism.
No, I think that's a very valid point, and this doesn't just like stay within the South Asian culture as well. Like I was here last year in my workplace, in my office, and I think it was not 2020 but 2019. Or maybe a little after. No, so I don't know. There was something going on about some women rally or something, or no, maybe it was Pride Parade. It was probably Pride Parade. And I remember a coworker, a white man, he walked into my office and he just like asked me as if he was demanding. He's like, "What is it that you women want? What is it that you don't have?" And I just like, I was just so dumbfounded and like completely like shocked. How do I respond to this man who's in a place of authority and he's just, and he's demanding it from, he's like, it's not like you women in the Islam. It's not like them, right? And I'm like, what the hell does Islam mean?
You should have been like, I want your bloody respect. You better knock that door before you enter my office.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, do you bloody know who the hell you're talking to right now? Like,
but like,
no, even in like the workplace too. Like I had, like, that's the thing. Like, even though he didn't report to me, but I was at a very like parallel level to him in terms of authority. But yet he thought he could just come and demand that question from me, like an answer from me like that. So, I mean, I think one of the biggest things I want to just jump into right now before we talk about first of all, this is not women inequality and the disparities that women face is not just in Pakistan or South Asia. This happens across the world. But as more countries, more communities are working towards adopting practices, policies, laws, social awareness that is helping them progress, you will start seeing more and more enhancement, improvement, empowerment of women, and that will be shown in data. But there are still countries, communities, places, societies where women are still really further behind in their, what you can say, progress, because there are still so many rigid structures that are limiting their like health and their improvement. So that's something we want to talk about, right? So that's the context that we're coming at from. We're not saying the West has answers and because we are in Canada, we have the answer. No, that's not at all what we're coming at. We're just looking at in general today. We want to just understand, okay, why is it such a big deal? Women have there's lots of, I'm just going to throw some like stats out. Like the data is results, right? The statistics that tell us, okay, what is happening in the world, right? And let's look a little bit at Pakistan first, right? And what is the reality of women's health in Pakistan, right? Pakistan scores one of the lowest at the bottom of all the countries in the world. On the global gender data report, gender gap report, Pakistan is like at the bottom, like amongst the bottom 5 on different what you call scales. On like health and survival, Pakistan ranks as 149, right? So this means that Pakistan is amongst the 4 countries, which is like Pakistan, India, China, and Vietnam, in according to the 2020 report, where women are not granted the same access to health as men are. Right. So what does this mean? Right. So that means that women are going to suffer more when they have to go get the help that they need. Pakistan also has a very low abnormal sex ratio at birth. So what does that mean? That means there's for every 100 boys that are born, there's only 92 girls that are born. So that's a bit like, what is that going to do? So there's fewer girls than for guys. So what's happening to those 8 girls? They're probably being killed either at birth or they're just being aborted before, right? So there's that. So, and then now let's look at in Canada as well. So in 2019, BC Women's Foundation, BC is the province where we live, British Columbia. Women's Foundation released a really important report. It's called In Her Words, and it's a report looking at women's experiences in accessing healthcare, right? Women of color, so immigrant women, women from racialized communities face much more challenges than white women in accessing healthcare and getting the help that they need. So according to that report, over half of the women in their study reported that they felt that a doctor had diminished their symptoms. So when you go and tell the doctor, I'm feeling this, or mujhe lagta hai ki I have kahin mere paas cyst hai ya ye ho raha hai, like there's something, their pain is going to be like, no, you're just not feeling like that, just stop, right? This has happened many times when women have had to like beg doctors that I'm going to die right now, I need a test. Like, you're not going to get the test, you're going to get diagnosed later. So there's that challenge. 3 in 10 women report having challenges in accessing the help that they need, right? 3 in 10, that's a big number as well. They can't access the help that they need. And then also, you may not even know what health, they may not even know that what type of help that they need. Regular checkups nahi honge. Then endometriosis affects 1 in 10 women. So that's almost 176 million women worldwide. And in many cases, this is going to take several years to be diagnosed, right? And it has debilitating impacts. So what is that, right? Endometriosis किसी को पता भी नहीं होगा कि ये है क्या आधे टाइम पे.
I know label पे इस पे label ये औरतों के मसले.
औरतों के exactly औरतों के मसले. So तो औरत का मसला क्या है? सबसे बड़ी बात तो ये, I think at the root cause of all of this is औरत का जिस्म, the body of the woman. There is so much shame attached to the body of a woman that we just don't want to even talk about it. We want to hide her and hide her pain, whatever it is, because, how can she have it? But like, let's sit over here and just say it loud and clear. A woman's body has some parts that a man doesn't have, which we all know. All women menstruate. I menstruate, you menstruate, our mothers menstruated. They have had menopause. Our daughters will, our sisters do, our cousins do, our friends do. Tumhari ammi, meri ammi.
Hence how also reproductive systems work.
That's how,
जो हम पैदा हुए हैं.
It is the form of life that it continues, right? But with that are going to be many problems that women also face, right? And there can be complications, but men don't know. And women go through extreme pain. And not every woman goes through the same pain every month. Not every woman, what you call, menstruates in the same way either. So there's not anything. And there's so much shame, like in our families, especially like I remember growing up, when a girl is menstruating, it's her monthly cycle, pads, chapa ke rakhne hain. Don't talk about it. Your brothers, your cousins, no one wants to hear about it. No one wants to know. You're not going to give women the space. Like I remember, like just sitting. One time, like I was in pain or something, and my cousin just came by and he said, "Let's go. Like we have to go. Come on, hurry up. Why are you taking so long in the bathroom? What are you doing?" And like I couldn't. And he was older than me. He's like 10 years older than me. I just could not just tell him what I was going through, because there was so much shame attached to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we've grown up. Like we've been told not to talk about it. PCOD, like if you have issues in your let's say like ovarian cysts and anything like that, there's not going to be any conversation about it.
No.
And one of the biggest things is we don't want to talk about women's health, especially young girls who are unmarried. Why? Because let's take the cat out of the bag. It's going to affect her marriageability.
Yeah.
You're not going to be accepted, right? And I remember, like many other times, a cousin of mine had Crohn's disease, really bad pain, and she would have like problems in her like stomach, and people in like the rishta market, that there would be like circulated, that would be something to be used against her, that oh, she has issues like that.
Aapko koi masle to nahi hai?
Aapko koi masle? Yes, exactly. And then I remember this for me one time, this like guy's rishta came, and this guy was a lawyer, he's really smart, and one of the guy's demands, right, because that's what they put forward, is that to make sure that she doesn't have any diabetes, because his mother has diabetes and that resulted in like an amputated leg or something like that. So the girl should, like, I mean, like, excuse me, like, are you kidding me? Like, right, Mehru, like, I know you're looking down because of how disgusted you probably are, and exactly, like, these are the type of conversations that I've heard.
And you know, to these things I want to be like, मुझे diabetes नहीं है, पर तुम्हारे लिए मैं diabetes करने लगी हूँ. I'm going to eat so much sugar कि तुम्हारे लिए ना मुझे diabetes हो जाए और तुम जैसा लड़का मेरे पास भी ना आए कभी.
So exactly, and then like, and this guy was like talking to me about, like, you know, how he's so philosophically woke, and how he's just so in you know, he doesn't watch television because network television is just like commercialized, and like, and I'm just like, beta tumhare muh pe main thappad maar दूं, like that's all I want to do right now.
अच्छा, thank you so much कि आपने वो stats बताए. Very very important to actually see numbers कि ये कैसे होता है, क्योंकि we know कि ये चीजें हो रही हैं, but numbers really help it. And I want to say कि ये these are very true things, because आप जैसे for example आप ईद की नमाज पढ़ने जाने हैं, if you are on your period you're not going to go pray, and everybody's going to know that she's not going to go, so आपको basically सबको बताना पड़ता है, oh she wasn't feeling too well so she's at home. भाई सबको पता है कि she's on her period, you know. So ये, और जैसे आपने कहा जिस्म के साथ इतनी शर्म अटैच्ड है, तो औरतें कैसे कंफर्टेबल फील करेंगी कि एक हॉस्पिटल में जाएं और अपने मसले मसाइल बताएं, जब जो on the receiving end the listening guy is a male, a doctor who also is part of the patriarchy, will not understand women's issues properly. There's not enough female doctors to listen to female issues, right? So ये शर्म attached है, तो these numbers translate into women not going out and being able to talk freely about their issues. However, my manifesto में पढ़ी थी Aurat March के कि they've well, this is not something new, this has been happening for a long time, but they, you know, they've sort of put out healthcare camps for minorities and villages where there's no access to healthcare, and they're slowly, you know, raising awareness about issues, women's issues, and female, even reproductive, family planning, or stuff like the contraception in areas where there's no access to healthcare. So that is why it's a key theme for Aurat March as well. But I really like कि आपने जैसे बताया कि the jism is sharam, basically औरतों के मसले मसाइल. हार्ट का बता देंगे, उसको सांस ब्रीदिंग का मसला है, उसका एक arm amputated,
but not if she's not married.
Not if she's, बिल्कुल.
You're not going to talk about anything about
कुछ नहीं बोलना to them.
बोलना ही नहीं है. Otherwise, like, there's going to be shame. Like, and sorry to cut you off, Mehru. Like, I have like 2 more examples like I want to share about like my own like experience. Like, I think you're talking about like going to the doctors, right? And I'm talking about a doctor over here. Mm-hmm. Like, and he was a brown doctor, Desi doctor, and he's a really nice uncle, is a nice doctor. But like, I remember going to him with my mom, and I think I was probably 14 or 15, I don't know what it was, and I still have my tonsils, so I get like, I used to get like really bad infections, throat infections, fevers all the time, and I've gone to him like regularly. This is also like my family doctor. And one time I go and I was expecting once again tonsillitis, blah blah blah, and he says to my mom, I think she has mono, right? And I don't know what mono is, right? I'm just like, what? And like my amma is like so faint of heart. Like, you tell my amma like I have zukham, like my mom's gonna start crying. Like, she's one of those, like, she's very squirmish, right? And then she's just like, okay. And he says, and this is like a doctor, right? He says, ye kissing se hota hai. And he's like, when you exchange saliva, this is when this happens, right? And I'm not shaming any girl over here right now who who may have kissed a man or this and that. I'm not. But like I was like the most like biggest nerd on the planet. The most like, I had no idea. Like I like so like lost. Like I was like, and I remember like I was like, what the hell? Like, and like, what does he mean? And my Ammi, like, I remember my Ammi's progressive, but she like looked at me, right? Like, what the hell, right? Like, ye kya? And I'm like, no, Ammi, like, no, I haven't, right? And like and the doctor started looking at me too, like as if like, and I'm this 14-year-old girl, right? Can you imagine what sort of message would have gone to me? And then he sent me for tests and this and that. And the test came out like regular, like later, okay, no, there's no bloody mono or anything like that. I just had a bloody fever from that. But just the way he said it or so. But let's say if it was mono, right? And for me, like, I'm not like gonna sit here and defend it, but there was another girl in a situation where she would be, let's say she is a girl who's sexually active or somebody who has that, you are already just scaring the hell out of her that she's not going to. And then I remember later in grade 12, a friend of mine, and this was not even like, I can't remember what happened, but she had like a little growth underneath her armpit, and I don't know what it was, like I don't know what got infected or was a pus or whatever it was. She had it, and she was so scared, and she just learned to drive. So me and her during lunch hour, we drove to the walk-in clinic, and she went and got it checked. She didn't want to tell her family because her family was very conservative, and her mom would like, she panicked about everything, and I also like just a lot of shame attached to it. So we both, I remember we drove to the walk-in clinic over here, and I went with her, and the doctor removed it. And like I sat with her, like I held her hand with the whole time, and like there was a lot of like, similarly, like, but once again, like we can't, and we were still kids because we're not 18 at that time. So, but we had to take the decision on our own. Like I was trying to support her.
I can only imagine how many underage women go for abortions or for their sexual health advice to our clinics around here without any information to their parents, because they just don't feel comfortable telling their parents. There's so much shame attached, I can only imagine.
And I think if we educated our daughters, we educated our kids, then maybe what you want, whether than you're scaring the hell out of them, putting them in rooms, rather than opening up the doors or having that conversation and explaining and educating them on what it is. Like, I'll be honest, like when I was like, I remember like when the whole rishta situation started like amplifying for me, I was 21, 22. And I even at that time, like I didn't feel comfortable sitting with my mother and having that conversation. But what is the conversation that I probably going to have? What jora is she going to be wearing? What like designers they're going to be wearing? खाने पे guest 100 आने हैं या 200 guest आने को खाना क्या खाना है, जेवर हमने कितना लेना है? Like those are our priorities. But you don't want to talk to a person about their own health, her own ability to like plan and her reproductive rights. ये मेरा जिस्म मेरी मर्जी का यही मतलब है. On all of this, like my body is my right. Like who you're giving my rights to? Who? This other person who probably doesn't even understand what is menstruation or anything or reproductive right. Pakistan has a high fertility rate right now, 3.6, 3.3 or 3.6 ke kareeb hai. That's a high fertility rate. और आपकी population already इतनी ज़्यादा है and already under the age of 30 है, इतनी बड़ी population है. So what are you going to do? Right? So these are questions we need to have a conversation about, मगर हम करते नहीं हैं. Very similarly, a cousin of mine over here in Canada, she was in a very abusive relationship. It was an unhappy relationship. She wanted to do her MBA. And she came from Pakistan. They're landowning family. They're very well to do. She was very brilliant. She wanted to go and do her MBA. Her mom said to her, rather than spending money on your MBA, we're going to get you married. We'd rather spend the money on your wedding. Right? So she gets married to this man she has a heart never really known. And this man is very traditional. She comes to Canada, an abusive relationship, has one child, daughter. Then obviously, bachche paida karo, to shadi theek ho jayegi. So she has another child. And I think at that time she realized that this marriage is not going anywhere. So she goes and I think she gets an IUD, right? Device.
It's a contraception.
Contraceptive device, right? She gets it. Her mother finds out. Her mother freaks out. And her mother's like, तुम्हारी स्किन खराब हो जानी, ये हो जाना, बच्चे जो तुम 2 बच्चे लेके भी कहीं नहीं जा सकती हो, तुम 3 बच्चे या 4 बच्चे लेके भी कहीं नहीं जा सकोगी. Does that make sense to you? No, right? So her mother made her remove it. So she was saying that the burden that's going to be on you, you already can't leave your marriage because you already have a child. So now that you can, what's the point of stopping having children? Have more children, so then your marriage is gonna... But that woman ended up like getting a divorce, and I'm proud of her. But she got a divorce after the 3rd child. So now, and I'm sure she loves her kids, and I think that I understand that. But at the same time, that burden on that young girl. She has to now live her life raising 3 children on her own, right? And not just one. So what that could have been reversed if she had the decision for her body, her reproduction was in her control. But no, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about on her shadi, how much zevar did they put on, how much zevar, or how many guests were fed. So these conversations aren't going to happen.
How
and then
she looked on the shadi.
And then like similarly with me, another day, like what happened with me was I got vertigo, and I don't know what how I got it. Maybe it was some food poisoning or something, but I got vertigo and it was really bad, and it impacts me to this day. So I remember going to the doctor. The doctor kept giving me nausea pills, and they were all like male doctors. Nobody was even diagnosing me. They're like, oh, bas theek hai. Like they weren't even, nobody, even to this day, like I was not able to get the test properly, right? And I was just ridiculed all the time. And I was bedridden for months and a constant chakkar. And I remember that the day that I got it, we had gone to see some relatives. We had to go somewhere. So my mom took me. We all were there, and I was on the bed and I was lying down. And every time you get up, because vertigo means like feels like you're on a roller coaster, but and you know the feeling of the roller coaster that you're falling front, but then you also feel like you're falling back.
I've only read about it, so I can imagine.
So it's horrible, right? So you actually feel like one part of you is falling forward, the other part is being pulled back. So and your body feels like it's being poisoned, so your body vomits. So I literally started vomiting, like even stomach bile, like there was nothing left inside of me. It was that bad. Sorry, once again, trigger warning, I guess. But
too much information.
No, question was that I was that vulnerable, that sick, and I was once again 19, 20, and my relatives are there like, "You pregnant to nahi hai?" That is what, and my mom like looked at them, and my mom like, and it was like my mom is tired, like scared, right? Like this is her daughter who's on the bed, she doesn't know what's going on to her, and that is what people wanted to say, right? So like once like who do you turn to? Who do you have a conversation with about it?
मुझे ना सर में दर्द हो रही है इतनी ज़्यादा, because मेरे दिमाग में ये थॉट्स और आपकी बातें हैं और ये सब कुछ, मुझे ना गुस्सा भी चढ़ता है और फिर सर में दर्द भी होती है.
And I'm not, and like the thing is, we come from privileged backgrounds, Mehru. I have a car, or like at that time I didn't, but like now I do. Like I can drive. Or my friend, or I have friends who could drive me. I had access. I live in Canada where healthcare is free. My dad's information is not going to be asked from me when I go to the doctor's clinic. None of that. But even then, I still face these barriers. So women's health is a big issue, and we need to talk about it, but we don't talk about it, and we think it's okay. So why am I standing for Aurat March? This is why I'm standing in Aurat March, is so that every woman has the same right to her health as any other man would. And also having a right over my body. मेरी body है, मैं decide करूँगी कि मुझे बच्चे पैदा करने हैं, मुझे बच्चे पैदा नहीं करने हैं. मैं decide करूँगी कि मुझे if I want to be sexually active or I don't. It's my decision, my body. और आप मुझे एक तरह से देखते हो, मुझे नहीं पसंद आता है, वो मेरी मर्जी है कि आप मेरे करीब आ सकते हो, आप मेरे करीब नहीं आ सकते हो. I will choose. And that is why I stand with Aurat March, and that is why I say मेरा जिस्म मेरी मर्जी. And if anybody has a problem with that, वो उनका मसला है, मेरा नहीं है. मेरे rights हैं, and nobody can take those away from me.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. और मैं भी I stand for the same things as you just said as well. मैंने अपनी life में अपनी family relatives में बहुत देखा है जब, because my mom's a psychologist, right? So a lot of the women in our lives and our relatives have come to her for assistance and to ask her, like, you know, they're having problems, how can I go about it and stuff like that. And the one theme that I've noticed for a fact is that the husbands or the mother-in-laws or even their own mothers have come to my mom and said कि like वो तो पागल हो गई है, पता नहीं वो क्यों इतना पागल हो गई, प्लीज आप उसकी मदद करें, प्लीज हमें बताएं हम क्या करें, वो तो पागल हो गई है. And when you hear these पागल औरतें, quotation marks guys for those listening to this, for those जब आप ये पागल औरतों की बातें सुनते हैं, they are literally just screaming out their rights. They are just screaming asking for, begging for their basic human rights. However, जब आराम से बात करती हैं तो कोई नहीं सुनता, आराम से request करेंगी कोई नहीं सुनेगा, कोई बात करेंगे नहीं सुनेगा. पर जब वो चीखना शुरू कर दें, जब वो पागल हो जाएं, तब आपको जी मेरी माँ लाइक थेरेपिस्ट याद आ जाती है कि ओ आप इसको ठीक करें, ये तो बहुत चीख रही है, ये पता नहीं क्या क्या बातें कर रही है, एंड दे आर लिटरली जस्ट आस्किंग फॉर देयर ब्लडी राइट्स व्हिच everybody is guaranteed, all humans are. अब ये आप सोचो, जो ये सुन रहा है, आप if you are a man and even if you're a woman, just think अगर किसी लड़के को, right, like a 30-year-old boy or 32-year-old boy or whatever, has to is very successful in their career, right, they're very successful with their friend group, they have social activities going on and stuff like that, and he has decided he does not want to get married, right, he has made the decision that I'm good in this life, I do not want to. The parents for even for a second will not think कि नहीं, तुमने तो शादी करनी है और हम तुम्हारे लिए ये लेके आ गए, तुम ये शादी करो और बस. अच्छा ठीक है, अगर पेरेंट्स हैव थॉट कि हाँ ये होगा, और लड़के ने कहा अच्छा क्या मसला है, लेट्स डू इट, लड़का कहेगा अच्छा मुझे लड़की दिखाएं, मैं चूज करूंगा, ठीक है चलें, मुझे लाइक गिव मी सम ऑप्शंस. अब इसी आप पोजीशन में एक 32-year-old लड़की को डालो, right, who is very successful in her career, is very successful in her social groups, and she has social activities going on, and she has made the decision that she does not want to get married, right? Now, the parents will never accept that, first of all. Very, very difficult for parents to accept that. But however, parents are like, no, we will get you married. You have to. But here's this guy, get married to her. ठीक है, कोई ऑप्शंस नहीं, चूज करने का टाइम नहीं है. फिर तुम 36 की हो जाओगी, तब बच्चे कैसे करोगी, बच्चों का ख्याल कैसे करोगी, तुम इतनी बूढ़ी हो चुकी होगी. डू यू वांट टू हैव लाइक 2-year-old babies when you're like 50 years old? उनके साथ लाइफ कैसे गुजारोगी, राइट, उनको एंजॉय कैसे करोगी.
बच्चे बीमार पैदा होंगे,
तुम्हारे ग्रैंड किड्स, तुम उनको भी नहीं देख सकोगी, तुम अभी करो शादी. सो डू यू अंडरस्टैंड? और ये रियल चीजें होती हैं हमारी जिंदगी में. ये मर्दों को अपॉर्चुनिटी या ऑप्शंस दी जाती हैं, लड़कियों को नहीं दी जाती, right? Maybe, sorry, this is a little bit away from our topic of health.
No, it's a big topic.
Mental health.
I'm glad you opened it up because it's mental health. And we were talking about physical and reproductive health as well, and sexual health. But I also want to talk about mental health. And I think we can probably even do a full episode on mental health in women, right? Because the impacts of health, because हम कहते हैं ना वो पागल होगी, उसको दौरे पड़ गए. What you just said right now is, but why? Mental illness is a big challenge that we are all susceptible to, but the implications of it for a woman are much more, right? And the lives that they're living, the mental strain, that's what I'm talking about, the mental violence that they expect. Okay, आप किसी को, for example, every single day आप उसको चीनी खिलाते जाओगे, every single day उसको diabetes होगी, right? आप किसी को बाय ठंड में खड़ा कर दोगे, नंगे पांव खड़ा कर दोगे, उसको बुखार होगा या नहीं होगा, right? आपकी बॉडी, तो वो जो ब्रेन है, जो इमोशन, आप उसको रोज टॉर्चर करोगे, उसको रोज सप्रेस करोगे, उसकी आइडियल्स को एक्सेप्ट. और and someone who has awareness, someone who maybe is sensitive, someone, and sensitive का ये मतलब नहीं कि weak है, sensitive in the sense कि she हसासमंद है, she understands what things are going around her, right? आप in the, remember in one of our podcasts, I think the last one, when I mentioned कि when they say कि आदमी जो मर्जी करे लेकिन घर को रात को तुम्हारे पास वापस आता है. So what does that mean for a woman? A woman maybe who has to be subjected to abuse in different ways, of infidelity, जिसमें वो किसी से बात नहीं कर सकती है, or constantly holding your fears inside of you. If you're sexually abused by somebody in your household, how are you going to share that with somebody?
Especially अब COVID के दौरान जब jobs were not present and people are working from home, आप imagine करो domestic abuse, intimate partner violence कितना बढ़ गया था.
Huge, and I can pull them up right now.
For sure, it has increased.
बढ़ा हुआ है अभी.
Yes, exactly.
And women have nowhere to go. Shelters are overflowing. There's not enough shelters for women.
पाकिस्तान में तो बहुत ही कम है, first of all.
किसके पास जाएंगी? Who are they gonna go to when they're, and over here too, many women are living with their domestic abusers, and then because of the economy is contracting, the service sector jobs where women work more have lost their jobs. Exactly. So who are they going to go to when they leave? They don't have the money and the resources to, right? So that's what a feminist economy recovery also looks as. You're going to prioritize women getting back into work, having shelters available to them,
having childcare available when they're at work.
So there's an amazing report. Sorry, there's police in the back as well. They're just amplifying what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where
maybe they're just supporting you. They're like, yes.
Absolutely. I live by like an ambulance center, a fire station, and then the police office. So it's this, my street is always like sirens all day long. So
well,
sorry,
also
guys.
says that you will always be safe when
that's true.
when you need help.
When I need help.
Yeah.
So like another, like what I was just going to talk about was like mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you have all these challenges that are facing you and don't have the resources, your health is going to deteriorate, mental, physical, emotional, whatever it is. But then there's so much shame attached to it, so you're not going to talk about it. So I think if this Women's Day in this March, if we can impact, like if you have a sister, if you have a mother, if you have a daughter, son around you, start talking about women's health. There's no shame attached to it, right? All women menstruate. It's something, if a father should be able to go buy pads for their daughter. They should be able to have that conversation with their daughter. A brother should be able to understand, okay, meri behen is in pain right now. I shouldn't just be like, shaming her. Like, making fun of like, oh, if she's staining, her kapde stained ho gaya, something like that. It's okay. Normalize it. Usko, usko, hai ganda paleet karke, hai ye to paleet hai. Like there's women who are like can't leave their homes because they've been told that they're paleet, that they're impure, that they're dirty. These are like how much, and like we haven't even talked about postpartum depression. When women have uske bare mein koi baat karta hai aurat ki what happens to a woman after she has children?
I know someone personally here actually who was very, very successful during her pregnancy. She's very independent, also a single mom, but she was very, very successful and very independent during her pregnancy. But right after giving birth, when she went back home, she just could not handle it. First of all, there was no one to watch her baby with her, especially during COVID, right? And she just could not handle that. And then she had to get a postpartum bed in the BC Women's Hospital because it was so difficult for her, and she didn't want to take that resource first because she thought she could do it, but I myself and my other friends, we had to like tell her that please, this is for your own help, your mental health, and for your baby's care as well. When their support is available, just be able to take it, right? But she understood that and she acknowledged it, and then she did go take that postpartum bed. So postpartum is very different than what it can be for an independent woman, right? Like these are chemicals released in your body, and
everybody like experiences it differently, and for some it can be debilitating. You can become paralyzed almost. Exactly. Right? There's so many like issues like this, and like that are attached to like a different body parts, like breast cancer, uski screening karna, cervical cancer, uski like there's all these. Lekin koi baat hi nahi karna chahta. We don't want to have a conversation about these because it's like, no, hush hush behind closed doors, or go to a doctor. But the doctors are also going to ridicule you so much. Exactly. Oftentimes because they come from the same society. Right? And like and in Canada, for example, you go to a brown doctor, sabse pehle sawal they'll ask you, are you sexually active? And they'll look at you like, and they'll wait. And they're like, it's like that. And aap unko ek jawab dete ho. And then you move on from them. But then if you go to a white doctor, for example, and you're an older woman and you're like, but you're not married, are you sexually active? And if you tell them no, they'll look at you like, tum bimar ho. Like, oh, it's okay. Oh, really? Like my friends were just telling me the other day, she's like, like the doctor started like, going into like this whole conversation, like, oh, it's okay. You'll find somebody, this and that. Like as if usme koi choice hi nahi hai.
Yeah, उसमें कोई कमी है कि उसको कोई मिला नहीं. And that's very interesting that you bring it up because I am very comfortable around men, but of course, doctors, it's a different story sometimes, right?
It's invasive, man. Yeah, it's very invasive.
They're in a position of authority and they're able to decide about your health or tell you what to do and stuff. So I'm comfortable around men, but I'm not comfortable. I'm comfortable around men doctors, but not brown men, South Asian men doctors. Like I am not. There's so much culture, stigma, so much attached, and they don't even know my family. They like, pata nahi wo shayad mera naam to mera jante hain from the paperwork, but like it's not like wo meri family ko jante hain, but just my like, oh my god, मैंने इनको अगर कुछ बता दिया तो ये मेरी पूरी जिंदगी मुझे shame ना करते ना, या इनको लगेगा मैं impure हूँ, या इनको लगेगा या मैं कुछ मेरी लाइफ में like I don't take good care of my health, And so there's just so much shame attached. So I'm comfortable with men doctors, just not South Asian men. And I've had some encounters with South Asian men doctors here that I don't even know of, and they don't even know me, but it's just so awkward just because we share this race and culture and traditional values or whatever. And there's so much stigma attached to women's health, right? So I get really uncomfortable. So I just want to say this one more thing कि जब हम पहले बात कर रहे थे कि हमें अपने आप को क्वेश्चन करना पड़ेगा कि हम कैसे लाइक व्हाट आर वी डूइंग टू क्या हम उस पोजीशन में हैं कि हमारी वजह से किसी की डिसीजंस लाइफ की बैरियर्स आ रहे हैं राइट एक्सेस नहीं हो रहा तो जैसे कई आंटीज होती हैं दे विल बी लाइक ओ वो तो रात को पिल्स खा के सो जाती है राइट ये जो हम बातें कर रहे हैं क्या आपने सोचा है वो ये पिल्स क्यों खाती है क्या आपको पता है उसको रातों को नींद नहीं आती आप उसको ब्लेम कर सकते हैं कि वो पिल्स खा के सो जाती है बट यू नो हाउ मच ट्रॉमा इज अटैच्ड विद इट वो लाइक यू नो दिस इज एक्चुअली अ सोल्यूशन फॉर हर एंड शी कैन सर्वाइव दिस इज व्हाई शी इज सर्वाइव सो ये आप जब बातें करते हो यू शुड क्वेश्चन योरसेल्फ आपको पूछना चाहिए you are also adding to the patriarchy, this misogyny कि वो लड़की पिल्स खा के सो जाती है क्योंकि उसको रात को नींद नहीं आती जब वो अपने सोचती है उसकी लाइफ में क्या क्या चल रहा है राइट उस पर प्रेशर है अपनी हस्बैंड से अपनी अम्मी इन लॉज से कि और बच्चे करो उस बेचारी के 5 लड़कियां हो चुकी हैं मगर उसको एक और करना है ताकि वो लड़का हो और अगर लड़का नहीं होगा तो छठी लड़की होगी और फिर 7वां लड़का हो सो उस पे इतना प्रेशर है तो वो पिल्स नहीं खाएगी तो क्या खाएगी यार क्या आप सोच सकते हैं कैन यू इमेजिन कौन है इस दुनिया में जो इतना स्ट्रांग हो जो इतना इमोशनल बर्डन और फिजिकल बर्डन ले सके जिंदगी में I don't know of anybody.
जितना औरतें लेती हैं on a regular basis.
Or you think the pills are the problem? No, the pills are not the problem. The problem is the deep-rooted cultural traditions that we have enforced upon women.
और कौन सा ट्रेडिशन मेरे उसका नाम बताओ उसका नाम क्या है पेट्रियार्की है
पेट्रियार्की
जिसको हम चैलेंज कर रहे हैं हम अपने सारे कल्चर को सकाफत को नहीं कह रहे हैं कि जिसको ठुडे मारने हैं हम पेट्रियार्की को कह रहे हैं और पेट्रियार्की एग्जिस्ट अक्रॉस कल्चर्स नॉट जस्ट वन कल्चर
एग्जैक्टली इधर भी पाकिस्तान में भी एंड आई रियली लाइक हाउ औरत मार्च में लिखा हुआ है कि वी हैव गॉन थ्रू अ पैंडेमिक यू कैन ओनली इमेजिन कि वुमेन के कितने अफेक्ट हुए हैं बट थिंक ऑफ पेट्रियार्की एज अ पैंडेमिक कि ये जब से लड़की पैदा होती है टिल हर डेथ शी इज फाइटिंग दिस पैंडेमिक शी हैज लेस अपॉर्चुनिटीज फॉर जॉब्स जस्ट लाइक वी हैव हैड इट इन कोविड हमारी जॉब्स चली गई औरतों की जॉब्स चली जाती हैं औरतों को तो जॉब्स नहीं मिलती ठीक है औरतें घर पे बच्चों का दे आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल लाइक उनको ख्याल रखना पड़ता है अपने बच्चों का जस्ट इमेजिन इन कोविड जैसे औरतों पे ये बर्डन आया कि दे हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ द किड्स सो द मैन कैन गो फाइंड अ जॉब एंड पे फॉर द बिल्स राइट सो ये दिस patriarchy has been a pandemic for and continues to be a pandemic for women just like even in the for example Black Lives Matter movement racism is a pandemic for Black lives and has been and continues to be so I think that's a very important thing that Aurat March has mentioned कि ये हर रोज औरत को एक मसला होता है पेट्रियार्की की वजह से और हम क्या कर सकते हैं कैसे हम चेंज कर सकते हैं हमारी बातों से पॉलिसी से लेजिस्लेशन हेल्थ केयर ये चीजें चेंज होंगी तो पेट्रियार्की will be smashed right उसके बगैर तो नहीं हो सकती
Absolutely, absolutely. I think these are brilliant. I think you've just summed it up really well, Mehru. And I think for today, I think we've had a really good conversation. And I think maybe this is where we should end it today.
I would love to continue, but I also understand that
I think this is
we're good on time.
This topic is very dear to us, and it's our own lived realities, our lived experience every single day as women, and we stand wholeheartedly behind the justice movement for women, and whether that be the Aurat March in Pakistan, whether that be Pride Parade over here, whether that whatever it is, we are here for women and for all sexual identities, and to say that we all deserve to have the same right. We all have the same rights. It's just time that we bloody remove all the barriers that have been keeping us from having enjoying our rights.
For sure. So yeah, let's end it there. Thank you so much, Talia. And Thank you. You're more than welcome. And again, one more time, I want to thank everybody watching and listening to this episode. That we really, really appreciate your support and love. अभी हमारे last video पे थोड़े से ज़्यादा views आए, तालिया और मैं तो इतने excited हो गए, हमने कहा, oh my god, इतने ज़्यादा views. But like views are not everything. Thora about support, like as in if you like our video or subscribe or even send us a message, that that is so important to us, and we love reading your messages and love interacting with everybody. And we hope to grow this podcast as much as we can. Of course, we have a lot of priorities. We have to pay bills, so we're at work 5 to 6 days a week, but we try our best to get here. And do follow us on Instagram, Arz Kiya Hai podcast. वहाँ हम regularly post करते हैं. तो अगर आप YouTube में देखते हो, आप हमें 2 हफ्ते बाद usually देखते हो, पर Instagram पे आप हमें ज़्यादा देख सकते हो. So I would 100% recommend going follow us on Arz Kiya Hai podcast on Instagram. And then, of course, subscribe to our channel if you watched this video today and if you could resonate with it. A happy International Women's Day to everybody. Hope you have a safe one and that we grow as a community to help each other out and support each other. So yeah, do subscribe to the channel and leave a comment, and please do like the video as well. And Talia.
I am just amazed that Mehru said all of that in one breath. It was like it was scripted, so that's amazing. I have nothing more to add other than just
no, I'm just kidding.
Happy International Women's Day to everybody. Please do like, share, subscribe, and sharing is a really big thing. If you have friends, family who you think would like the content that we put forward, please do share and leave us your feedback. We would love that. So take care. So Mehru, on the count of 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Bye.